the UPCSA Order of Lay Ministries. What is the OLM and how does it work? About 40 years ago, D.F. Wright, a Scottish theologian, expressed his concern about the church having come to see ministry as that which the minister does. Ministry is much more than that. Ministry is everything that takes place within a congregation. Ministry in all its forms is what the local congregation is all about. It's what we do. It's what we all do. It is quite clear from everything that is written about spiritual gifts that all of ministry being restricted to just one person was never what God intended. Quite the opposite, in fact. As I understand it, God's idea was that we should work together, be a team, interdependent upon each other, and always dependent on Him. So let's look at what Paul writes in Ephesians 4, verses 11 to 13. And he gave some as apostles, and some as prophets, and some as evangelists, and some as pastors and teachers, for the equipping of the saints for the work of service, to the building up of the body of Christ, until we all attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to a mature man, to the measure of the stature that belongs to the fullness of Christ. There are a few things to notice. He gave some as apostles and some as prophets, etc. He didn't give one to carry out all these functions. Different functions were to be performed by different people. The purpose was to equip the saints, that's all of us, for the work of service and to build up the body of Christ, which is the church, which again is all of us. So if all had the same purpose, then clearly whatever each was going to do, they would need to work together. In 1 Corinthians 12, verses 4 to 7, Paul writes in a similar vein, "Now there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of ministries, and the same Lord. And there are varieties of effects, but the same God who works all things in all persons. But to each one is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good." Again, a few things to notice. There are varieties of gifts. There are varieties of ministries. Every Christian receives a gift. Paul writes to each one, not to the selected few, not only to people who have earned it, to each one. The gifts again are given for the common good. And those last 2 points are also found in 1 Peter 4, verse 10. As each one has received a special gift, employ it in serving one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. So it's clear, we all have at least one gift. Our gifts differ from each other. All gifts were given for the same purpose, the building up of the church. Contributing to Christianity.com, Robert Hampshire expressed an opinion that we are all called to do ministry and even minister, but in all kinds of different ways, so that the gospel can be proclaimed, the kingdom can be built, and God can be glorified. It is the calling of God. Many within the UPCSA shared the view that ministry within the local church should be, and in fact already was being, provided by ordained ministers and lay people alike working side by side. To support and develop this reality, in January 2015, the UPCSA launched the Order of Lay Ministries. To understand how the OLM works, let's consider this illustration. What is this? Or this? These are all just fragments. But if we put them all together, we have the whole church. Each picture fragment has a different shape and different markings on it, but they fit together, and every single piece, however small, is needed to complete the picture. And in the same way, all the different ministries that make up the life of a congregation come together to form the church. We are all part of God's church, and we all have a role to play. It's very true that we are blessed with dedicated and well-trained ministers who serve congregations in word and sacrament. And we have faithful elders and stewards serving our sessions and boards. But we are also blessed with many capable and talented members who serve their congregations either in part-time capacities or as volunteers, paid or unpaid. I'm talking about, for example, the coordinator of the children's ministry, the choir leader, maybe a youth pastor or a pastoral coordinator, the members of our congregations who keep everything going, the people who do ministry in every congregation throughout the UPCSA, people who have been gifted by God Himself. This is not new. Congregations have always functioned in this way. But until we introduced the Order of Lay Ministries, we had not, as a denomination, formally shown respect for these different ministries. And they are indeed ministries, nor for the faithful folk who carry them out. This is the principle that gave birth to the Order of Lay Ministries. It's a formal recognition of the existence of these ministries, which are performed by the lay members of the church. And it creates a space in which we can acknowledge that lay ministries walk side by side with ordained ministries in a ministry team in which each member carries out their function in accordance with the gifts that God has given them. So the OLM seeks to celebrate the abundance of God's gift to the members of our congregation, support those who serve faithfully, train people towards excellence in service, and guide and clarify processes and expectations. The program sets up a win-win situation. Congregations will be assured that their lay leaders have been appropriately trained, and lay leaders will be officially recognized for their skills and the role they play in their congregations. Experience since the launch of the OLM has shown that there is a need to clarify the use of language with regard to this program. In the English language, ministers, often with a capital M, the people who have been ordained to word and sacrament, are referred to as the clergy. Members of the church, folk who have not been ordained to word and sacrament, are referred to as the laity. The singular of the term then being either layman or laywoman. So we talk about lay ministries. We're talking about the ministries which are formed in the church by the lay people, the people who have not been ordained to word and sacrament. The OLM is not a pathway into the ordained ministry. One cannot become a lay minister. There is no such thing. The OLM is a ministry in its own right, a ministry for lay people. And although the OLM incorporates lay preachers, the order is not for preachers only. The idea is to recognize leadership in all forms of lay ministry. The OLM is not trying to bring something new into being. Instead, it is aimed at bringing just a little order to all these contributions. As so often happens in an organization as widespread as the UPCSA, different expectations of the OLM have emerged from place to place. Some of the misunderstandings have led to resistance to the OLM, so it is useful to put the record straight and remind ourselves of what the manual provides in this regard. At item 16.176, the Manual of Faith and Order provides the following. Membership of the order confers no status, authority, or position other than that of the specific appointment in a local congregation. Belonging to the order grants no access to any of the councils of the church and no rights associated with the ordained ministry. As I said before, becoming an OLM lay preacher is not a pathway to the ordained ministry, and membership of the OLM does not grant anyone a seat on the presbytery. 16.1.8 provides all who have been members of the former order of lay preachers are automatically members of the OLM. It should be noted that with the launch of the OLM, the former order of lay preachers ceased to exist. All potential lay preachers must follow the prescribed route through the OLM, regardless of how qualified or experienced they may be, Presbyteries do not have discretion in this regard. Item 16.169 provides, privileges and responsibility in the order are always defined by the specific area of service in which an individual is currently serving. For example, a youth worker in the OLM does not have the privileges or responsibilities of a lay preacher. In addition to this limitation, it should be noted that the OLM has not yet made any decisions about admitting a candidate to more than one ministry stream. Candidates are not being admitted to a broad area of ministry, but to the particular stream of their choice. The provisions pertaining to the former order of lay preachers provided that it is permissible for a member of the order of lay preachers to wear a preaching gown, but not a clerical collar or stoles when conducting a service of worship. The services of a member of the order of lay preachers as pulpit supply are voluntary, but a congregation receiving such service is required through the relevant financial authority to cover traveling and incidental expenses. These provisions fell away in the manual when the former order was dissolved, but have been incorporated into the OLM regulations for lay preachers and therefore still apply. As a last thought in this space, it's important to note that the lay ministries being recognized by the OLM are not in competition with the ordained ministry, but rather in support of that ministry. Members of the OLM do not seek to take over the role of the ordained minister. They seek to make that role easier. A great many of the ordained ministers in the UPCSA are already responsible for more than one congregation, serving as interim moderators for congregations struggling to afford the services of an ordained minister. Still others serve only part-time, being simultaneously employed elsewhere. Consider how much easier the leadership task will be if a minister has the security of knowing that the people who head up the various ministries in his or her congregation have been properly trained, and that he or she has a reliable lay ministry team to ensure that the congregation's activities all run smoothly. At the commencement of the program, the General Assembly agreed that the OLM would recognize 5 streams of ministry. Children's Ministry Coordinator oversees the ministry of children under 18 years of age. Youth pastors will oversee the outreach and ministry to high school children. Programs run by youth pastors will be separate from those run by the Youth Association and will be restricted to children at school. Worship or choir leaders contribute to the sense of worship experienced by the congregation during church services. This will differ from one congregation to another. The OLM is not prescriptive. Whatever we offer as a guideline only. Pastoral coordinator is a largely administrative position, facilitating and overseeing regular personal contact with each member of a congregation. Lay preachers, unlike the other stream of ministry, which are more or less confined to the home congregation, the duty of lay preachers extends into the presbytery. A lay preacher has a ministry in his or her own right, which he or she exercises within the bounds of the UPCSA. Lay preachers conduct services of worship, including funerals, but may only serve the sacraments if they have completed the sacraments course and are authorized by the presbytery to do so. Lay preachers may be appointed by the presbytery as stated supply under the oversight of an interim moderator, and lay preachers who are also elders may be appointed by the presbytery as church development evangelists, known as CDEs. These appointments are in the discretion of the presbytery, depending upon the needs within its bounds, and not every lay preacher will be so appointed. The OLM has since introduced an additional stream, that of local evangelists, who will assist congregations in planting new worshiping communities or outstations. As just pointed out, with the exception of the lay preacher, all these ministries operate at congregational level. So it is important to understand that a local evangelist is not a church development evangelist. A CDE is not a congregational appointment, it is a presbytery appointment. has approached the field of lay ministries from a number of angles. Membership of the order is restricted to lay members of the church. It is not for ministers, because ministers have their own area of ministry. Recognition is being given for the performing of the ministry. So membership of the order is not a qualification or some form of status that looks good on your CV. To qualify for membership of the order, you need to be actively involved in the ministry of your choice, and you need to remain actively involved in that ministry, or your membership will lapse. Membership is not restricted to any one particular congregation, and if you, as an active member of the order, relocate and transfer your membership to a different congregation, the fact of your membership will be a recommendation to your new congregation of your abilities and experience. The names of all those admitted to the order will be enrolled in a register so that we can build up a database of capable and experienced people that can be used to inform congregations seeking skilled people. It is realized that congregations are sometimes obliged to put untrained people into ministry positions, and also that trained people have a desire to increase their knowledge and skills. To address this, the OLM will, over time, build up information about training courses that are available and suitable for each of the ministries. In time, there will also be OLM conferences and opportunities for members of the order to spend time together and share their experiences with each other, a bit like ministers' conferences. In any team relationship, it's important for all members of the team to be aware of each other's roles and functions. This ensures that each member knows both what to expect from the others and also what they expect from him. To assist with this, the OLM has drawn up terms of reference of the various lay ministries, setting out suggested responsibilities, reporting requirements, and so on. The terms of reference are being provided as a template which congregations can revise to suit their own particular requirements. They would also be helpful to folk who feel drawn towards a particular lay ministry and would like more insight into what would be involved in that function. Because it is important to place the right people in the right places, the OLM is also able to provide guidelines for recruitment interviews, which we are recommending should take place for both salaried and volunteered appointments. And as the last step in the recruitment process, there is a template of a letter of appointment, which again can be revised to suit the circumstances within the congregation. Support packs are provided by the OLM coordinator for each of the ministries. So the OLM is congregation-based, approved by the presbytery, fully supported by the Mission and Discipleship Committee and the OLM coordinator. How then does a candidate obtain admission to the order? Because the ministries themselves are congregation-based, the process starts in the congregation. Initial application is submitted to the session, who sends it to the presbytery. When presbytery has approved, it goes to the OLM coordinator. Please do not approach the OLM coordinator directly. The coordinator does not have authority in this regard. Candidates will then receive the first of 5 modules of the Foundations course. Each module covers a different aspect, namely an overview of the Gospel and the Apostles' Creed, the call to servant leadership, understanding our Presbyterian heritage, skills needed for good service, and the last one is a case study on Barnabas. Modules will be sent one at a time, as each is completed and returned, so that candidates study completely at their own pace. Communication is mostly by email. Presbytery will be informed as soon as the Foundations course has been completed. The admission process passes to the presbytery from this point. When all the I's have been dotted and all the T's have been crossed, The graduate's name goes into the database, and the OLM will stay in touch from time to time. What is the presbytery's role? The presbytery's role at this point includes interviewing all candidates from all the ministry streams to assess both suitability and ability. Additional training, both in biblical content and preaching skills, will be required for potential lay preachers, together with other additional procedures to be carried out by the presbytery. Both the foundations course and the additional training needs to have been completed before a lay preacher can be admitted to the order. Presbyteries need to arrange a trial service for all lay preachers. An evaluation form to assist with this is available from the OLM coordinator. Presbyteries then schedule a commissioning or setting apart service in a stated presbytery meeting. A liturgy for this service and appropriate certificates for each ministry stream are available from the OLM coordinator. So there it is. The OLM is not some sort of new ministry. It is a recognizing and a celebrating of all the existing ministries being carried out by the lay members of our church. It provides a process that will ensure that folk involved in these lay ministries have a training foundation on which to build their skills, and a way in which congregations can be put in touch with competent people who are both willing and able to serve. It is an opportunity for Christians to use the spiritual gifts God has given them, and it is a way to build the kingdom of God here on earth. Amen.